Hello, I'm Dr. Stanley Sandler. I'm a retired historian now. I've been a historian for the last 50 years or so. And this is Stan the History Man. I like to call these informal little sessions here. And today I'd like to talk. Someone asked me recently, um, Woodrow Wilson, and of course everybody's into race now. I understand that, of course, how much racist our past was. And the question was, how racist was Woodrow Wilson, President Woodrow Wilson? And so I thought about it and I came to the conclusion, which didn't take me too much thinking, that he really was a racist. I don't throw that term around lightly, but first of all, he was a he was born just during the Civil War and old enough to see the Reconstruction when the blacks were in many cases were given positions of authority. And there was a corruption and so on going on. It was all over the country. It's the age of Grant, corruption, that sort of thing. But they seem to focus on the blacks. And well, it's obvious they were slaves. They don't have experience, that sort of thing. But Woodrow Wilson lived through that. And he also, I would say, was kind of a classy racist. He would never use the N-word. Came from an old uh, religious family. I think a Presbyterian. So his father, they had status and pedigree, but not much money. And whatever they had was wiped out during Reconstruction. So Tommy Wilson, as he was called then, was not too likely to look favorably upon blacks in that respect. Now, the idea also, though, was we treat them right. We don't abuse them or anything. We never use the N-word. But they're really not developed as much as we are. You got to give them time. At any rate, Wilson becomes, first before he was president, he was a very successful governor of New Jersey, and he was a Democrat, but the Democrats and Republicans both believed in progressivism, modernize the country, stop the power of big business, or at least crimp it. Now, the Republicans would say crimp it less than the Democrats say to crimp it. They all said Standard Oil is too big, U.S. Steel is too big. And Wilson went even further. He thought that our Constitution was just kind of, there's nothing gets done. You know, the Congress, the President, the House of Representatives, they can all be in different political parties and how can they get anything done? So therefore, the British system was better. So we didn't like our system anyway. But at any rate, when he was elected president, it's the first time the Democrats came into office. Since in the last, I got to get 35, 40 years or something. And when the Republicans were in all this period, they were the party of Lincoln. So black people could get some jobs in Washington, not an awful lot. And the Republicans sort of lost interest in the blacks. But the Democrats are pretty much solid South, nothing for the blacks. So the thing is that really would indicate Wilson's deep-rated racism was when he was inaugurated, when he got into Washington, he was appalled to see a fair, not really large number of black people as clerks and that type of thing, nothing high up. And he didn't like that, working in the same office, maybe even touching each other, that sort of thing. So he instituted segregation. It didn't exist in Washington, D.C. before Woodrow Wilson came into power. So he, and actually a group of blacks leaders came to see him and said, Mr. President, this is not right. I mean, you're taking away our livelihoods in many. And he said, well, this is better. This is segregation. Your people are not going to be abused or anything, but it's best to keep them separate. And a couple of them said, Mr. President, maybe not where you're from, but in the North, we have votes. And, you want our votes, don't you? And Wilson got on his high horse. Gentlemen, how dare you think that I would actually change my decision on the basis of votes? Well, of course, he's a politician. Of course he would. But this time he's really, So they really didn't get anything out of Wilson. And that was right to the end. And also, Wilson, in 1919, after the Americans are really fagged out by the war, tired out, they were sick of progressivism, rightly or wrongly, and there are a lot of terrible race riots in 1919. Chicago, not the South, Chicago, some southern cities, but basically a lot of people are being killed, dragged off streetcars and beaten to death. And so again, blacks protested, well, Mr. President, can you please say, stop it? He issued a proclamation. They stopped the violence. They said, but the whites are coming and killing us. Stop the violence. So they never got anywhere with him. Now, historians for years said Wilson, he was a great progressive. He got us through World War I. His heart was broken because his dirty opposition stopped him from getting us into the League of Nations, which, he could argue that we should have been in the League of Nations. But little petty men didn't allow us. So Wilson had a pretty good reputation. This forlorn crusade, which turned to dust and ashes. He died a bitter man. Um, kind of out of it. He actually thought he could run for president on a third term. No, the whole sweep was again. In fact, I should point out how things had changed. The very month and year of victory, November 1918, the Republicans got control of Congress. And then 2 years later, 1920, they got control of the presidency as well. So Wilson was really out of it, but he didn't realize it. Of course, the Democrats came back again with the Depression. But anyway, so now, though, historians are much more concerned about race. They say, whoa, Wilson was a great progressive maybe, because most historians are progressives, and that's good. But the racism thing, that's not so good. And I don't think it takes an awful lot of proof to show that Wilson really was a racist. Well, hope you had some elucidation, some enjoyment from this episode of Stan the History Man. We'll talk to you later.